Hey guys, T-Boy. Today I got a look at the Bismarck. Silax on the screen, you can see he's maxed. You might be thinking to yourself, what a waste of insignias. I would probably tend to agree with you. Did want to have one level 16 brawler type just to see the efficacy of the 5 heals. And it is very nice to have 5 heals, I will say that. But in general, when you got a lot of different commanders that you want to level, you're going to be doing better getting them up to level 14 by putting one insignia into that line or that build. Doing that over a lot of different lines is going to, in general, be a better use of insignias than putting 8 into one line just to max them and get incremental benefits. But to get this extra heal, that's the only way to do it. And this is the only brawler commander that I've maxed to this point, so nice to have that to test out the 5 heal build. And the German line's probably the best. It's designed to be the closest range, and the brawler commanders, of course, promote close range combat. I played, I don't know, 10, 15 games of this thing since it's been fixed. The armor was fixed last update. It applies to all ships in the game, but the Bismarck, the Tirpitz, you should see it the most. For some reason, not all the armor layers were registering when the shots were incoming. Now they seem to be properly working. So basically now at close range, you should not be taking any citadels, or very rarely should you be taking a citadel at close range. Long range plunging fire, you're still going to be taking some wicked shots. So kind of the goal with the Bismarck is to close in as close as possible. 2 things are going to prevent you from doing that: presence of enemy destroyers and the torpedo threat, and your teammates sitting in the back, hiding under the covers, sucking their thumbs, and losing a bunch of credits before they complain online about Tier 7's service costs. So, just the way that a lot of players that don't understand service cost in Tier 7, that's going to kind of hamper you, because if you push forward too far forward and you don't have support, you'll get focused and eliminated very quickly. Just briefly, we've covered service costs a lot, but it's paid the minute you pay the game or enter the game. So sitting in the back trying to stay alive while doing nothing is going to lose you money, whereas if you're in a position to deal damage and affect the game, that's how you're going to be profitable at Tier 7. Ganai's not closing in here. I don't want to deal with this Torps, so we're going to turn away from this ship. Now, for a little while I was running as close to a full secondary build as I'm comfortable on this thing. Basically not running Von Hipper as an inspiration. I think that's a waste. Secondaries at really long range are going to be very wildly inaccurate and not very effective to begin with, so that's kind of a waste in my opinion. I've since switched back the first module to aiming systems, which is the one I like. I had the secondary mod on that, but the gun accuracy is so poor in that build that it's just not reliable enough for me. I prefer ships that perform reliably and in as many situations as possible. This thing, if you can't hit anything reliably at range, you're really ineffective until you can push in. And games with a lot of destroyers are games that you can't push in because of what your team's doing. You're not effective for half the game in those games, in those situations. So putting on the aiming systems, it improved the accuracy quite a bit. You can see I'm actually scoring some decent shots at long range in this game. And that was just the minor tweak. I also changed Madden on the inspiration to JoJo. Shells have a lot of penetration issues with these lower caliber guns of Tier 7. And that also improved this. So secondary builds might be fun. Yes, I've seen games where occasionally someone will get 70, 80k worth of damage with them. But usually you're going to get 250 secondary hits and get 10,000 damage or so out of them. So the Bismarck's quote-unquote strength is the secondaries. But until they adjust the secondaries, secondaries are very unreliable and usually they're going to be very worthless. So emphasizing something that doesn't work doesn't make sense in my mind. I know a lot of people like the secondary build. They like seeing all the fireworks going off. Fine. Occasionally you're going to have good results with them, but in my mind, the accuracy's still kind of king on the main guns. My original intent was to boost Hyde. You can get a full actually build and 5 heals out of him. But that would have taken 3.5, 4 weeks worth of promotion orders to get him from level 6 to 16. Celiax I had at level 12, so I could get him up to 16 in relatively short order. So that's why I ended up going with him. It's a fine build. The brawler type builds, they don't have fire penalties on your ship, which the actually build commanders do, and they have better maneuverability. Both of those things are going to help you closer range, which again the ship is trying to get into positions in close range. This particular game that we're watching doesn't have a lot of brawling action, but it was the highest damage that I've gotten in the 10 or 12 games that I've played since the armor adjustment. Just briefly to close out on the mods, for slot 4 I still do have the secondary mod on that. Your other option is the main turret traverse, or the main turret reload buff, which affects your turret traverse negatively. Again, turret traverse you're going to want to have as good as possible, be in close range. The closer you are, the harder it is to keep your guns on target if they are really slow in their turret traverse. So there's a lot of different options on how to set this thing up. What the optimal build is, I don't probably still know. There's a lot of new Battleship commanders that have good inspirations that I just don't have leveled up yet that could affect this build properly. But you can see in this game, we're firing a lot of medium range shots. We're getting citadels. I wasn't getting a lot of these reliable shots just without that secondary mod in slot 1. And JoJo's increased penetration over Madden's increased turret traverse. Those results are improvements in my mind. So, you know, this is not prototypical or on paper how the Bismarck's, I guess, supposed to be played, but in my mind, this is the effective way to do it. You don't want to be sitting there long range in the back, twiddling your thumbs, shooting for damage. If you can close in, that's what you're trying to do, but you can still get the damage with the accuracy builds, or emphasizing the dispersion and the accuracy as much as possible. 5 heals is very nice. Let's just be honest about it. There's really no way around it. But kind of all the things that you're trading off for that extra heal, I don't know if it's worth it. Again, you can get those heals with a lot of these anime or Halloween commanders. They usually are hybrids between the other two, the base commanders. And you can get the accuracy, the precision boost in perk 1, the dispersion boost in perk 3, and the heal in slot 4. And then you can usually do a turret traverse in 2, or you can put on the porcupine like I have in this game here. However you want to set it up. But again, the main guns are the kings. You know, that's the main guns pay the bills with battleships. And what you're trying to do is basically do a lot of damage every 30 seconds. And if you can't reliably do that in the battleship, then you're not as big of a threat. I mean, the battleship's main role is to threaten the enemy team and to say, if you cross this line, especially if you do it broadside, you will be punished heavily. If you can't hit the broadside of a barn, then that threat is diminished and your effectiveness goes down. Other roles for the battleships, tanking damage. You want the enemy shooting at your battleships, not your cruisers, not your destroyers. So a 5 heal brawler build, you're going to maximize the ability to soak up the damage. So from that aspect of the battleship play and strategy, very effective. But the main one in my mind is still the imposing threat, kind of the imposing of a no-go zone over certain portions of the map. And if you can't hit what you're threatening, then that threat is diminished. So, again, I think Hyde probably still would be better than Celiax. He does have an increased chance to start fire. He does have less maneuverability. There are drawbacks that kind of balance it out. But at the end of the day, I think the accuracy for those main guns is still the way to go. So, I don't know. I'm glad I got points into Celiax. I do use them as an inspiration occasionally on battleships, increasing the AP damage of the shells. So it's a strong inspiration if you want to use it. And it's a decent build here. I just don't know if it's optimal. And You know, I understand everybody and their mother wants the secondary build and the brawling build to be the effective way to play these ships. But until the secondaries are changed, if they ever are, it's just not. The main guns are the most important thing. Convince me otherwise. In terms of Tier 7 battleship rankings, I'd still probably put this last. You can make an argument for Vanguard. Vanguard's always been a hard ship to play. You got to be very deliberate with your angling. For some reason, I think they nerfed the accuracy at some point. It just doesn't seem as accurate as it once was. I don't ever recall them saying that they changed it, but that doesn't mean they did or didn't. But you could put Bismarck or Vanguard dead last, in my opinion, in terms of the battleship rankings. Tirpitz is definitely a superior ship. I think the Torp threat helps with moving in. Anyway, that's a look at the Bismarck, primarily focused on the builds. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave them below. I do love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.